The arrival. The sleek, silver spacecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing faintly as it dispersed the heat of re-entry. Inside, Ambassador Lyra of the Zarkai people stood motionless, her four arms crossed in a gesture of calm that belied her inner turmoil. After years of cautious communication between Earth and her home planet of Zarkaya, she was to be the first of her kind to set foot on human soil. As the ship touched down on the landing pad at the newly constructed Interstellar Diplomacy Center in Geneva, Lyra took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the recycled air of the ship one last time. Her iridescent scales shimmered in the artificial light, shifting from deep blue to purple as she moved towards the airlock. "Remember your training, Ambassador," came the voice of Captain Thrix over the ship's comm system. "The humans are unpredictable, but they are also capable of great things. You represent the hopes of our people for a peaceful future." Lyra nodded, her large, multifaceted eyes blinking in acknowledgement. "I understand, Captain. I will not fail our people." The airlock hissed open, and Lyra stepped out onto the ramp. The first thing that struck her was the sky, a vast expanse of blue that seemed to go on forever. Zarkaya's atmosphere, tinted by mineral particulates, had always given their sky a perpetual golden hue. This endless blue was both beautiful and slightly unnerving. At the bottom of the ramp stood a delegation of humans, their faces a mix of excitement, curiosity, and barely concealed apprehension. Lyra noted their varied skin tones, hair colors, and bills, a stark contrast to the uniform appearance of her own people. At the forefront stood a tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair, dressed in a crisp blue uniform adorned with various insignia. "Ambassador Lyra," the woman called out, her voice clear and welcoming. "I am General Amara Okafor, head of Earth's Interstellar Relations Committee. On behalf of the people of Earth, I bid you welcome." Lyra descended the ramp, her movements fluid and graceful despite the slight difference in gravity. As she reached the bottom, she extended her lower right arm in the traditional Zarkai greeting. "General Okafor, I bring greetings and hopes for friendship from the people of Zarkaya." General Okafor hesitated for a moment before extending her own hand. As their hands met, a ripple of excitement passed through the assembled crowd. Cameras flashed, capturing the historic moment for posterity. "Your journey must have been long," General Okafor said, gesturing towards the gleaming building behind her. "We've prepared quarters for you in the Diplomacy Center. Would you like to rest before the official welcoming ceremony?" Lyra's translator implant, nestled at the base of her skull, processed the general's words instantly. "Thank you for your consideration, General," she replied. "However, I am eager to begin our work together. My people have a saying: time spent in pursuit of understanding is never wasted." General Okafor smiled, a gesture Lyra had studied, but still found fascinating. "A wise saying indeed. In that case, let me introduce you to some key members of our team." As they walked towards the building, Lyra was introduced to a dizzying array of humans, scientists, diplomats, and military personnel. She did her best to remember names and titles, her highly developed memory storing away details for future reference. One introduction, however, stood out. A man with unruly brown hair and bright, inquisitive eyes stepped forward. "Ambassador Lyra, I'm Dr. Alex Chen, lead xenobiologist for the Earth-Zarkai exchange program. I can't tell you how excited I am to work with you." There was something in Dr. Chen's demeanor, an earnest enthusiasm that seemed to transcend the formal atmosphere, that immediately put Lyra at ease. "The excitement is mutual, Dr. Chen," she replied. "I look forward to sharing knowledge with you." As they entered the Diplomacy Center, Lyra marveled at the architecture. The building was a blend of human and Zarkai design principles, soaring glass ceilings reminiscent of Zarkai communal halls, combined with the sturdy practicality of human construction. It was a physical representation of the cooperation their two species hoped to achieve. The welcoming ceremony was a blur of speeches, handshakes, a custom Lyra found oddly endearing, and polite applause. Throughout it all, Lyra maintained her composure, her training allowing her to navigate the unfamiliar social waters with grace. It wasn't until later, alone in her quarters, that Lyra allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. She stood by the window, gazing out at the unfamiliar constellations of Earth's night sky. The weight of her mission pressed down on her, the hopes of her people, the future of interstellar relations, all resting on her shoulders. A soft chime from her communication device broke her reverie. It was a message from Dr. Chen. "Ambassador, I hope you're settling in well. I was wondering if you'd like to join me for a tour of our research facilities tomorrow. There's so much I'd love to show you." Lyra felt a small surge of warmth at the message. Despite the vast differences between their species, despite the potential for misunderstanding or conflict, there were those like Dr. Chen who genuinely sought connection and knowledge. She typed out a reply. "I would be honored, Dr. Chen. Let us embark on this journey of discovery together." As she prepared for her first night's rest on this strange new world, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles both expected and unforeseen. But if there were more humans like Dr. Chen, more opportunities for genuine exchange and understanding, then perhaps this mission had a chance of success. With that thought, Ambassador Lyra of Zarkaya closed her eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring on this blue planet so far from home. Unexpected allies. The soft hum of advanced laboratory equipment filled the air as Ambassador Lyra peered intently into a holographic display. Her four arms moved in perfect synchronization, manipulating the 3D model of a complex molecular structure. Beside her, Dr. Alex Chen watched with undisguised fascination, his eyes darting between the hologram and Lyra's dexterous movements. "Extraordinary," Alex murmured, more to himself than to Lyra. "The way your neural pathways allow for such precise multitasking. It's simply amazing." Lyra's scales shimmered with a hint of amusement. Over the past few weeks, she had grown accustomed to Alex's frequent outbursts of scientific wonder. "Just as I find it remarkable how your species achieves so much with only 2 arms, Dr. Chen," she replied, her translator conveying the gentle teasing in her tone. Their easy banter was a far cry from the formal interactions of Lyra's first days on Earth. What had begun as a standard tour of the research facilities had quickly evolved into a collaborative project that neither of them had anticipated. It had started with a simple question from Alex during that first tour. "Ambassador Lyra, I've been studying the preliminary data on Zarkai biology, and I'm particularly intrigued by your species' resistance to certain types of radiation. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions about it?" That conversation had led to hours of discussion, which in turn spawned a joint research initiative. Now, weeks later, they were on the verge of a breakthrough that could revolutionize radiation shielding technology for both their species. As Lyra made a final adjustment to the molecular model, a series of calculations began running on nearby screens. Alex leaned in, his eyes widening as he interpreted the results. "Lyra, look at this. If these simulations are correct, this new compound could increase our shielding efficiency by over 200%. Lyra's multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of excitement in her species. "Indeed, and the application of your earth metals in the matrix has stabilized the structure far beyond what we've achieved on Zarkaya. This is truly a synergy of our sciences." Their moment of triumph was interrupted by a gentle knock at the lab door. General Okafor entered, her usual stern expression softened by a small smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting a eureka moment," she said. "General." Alex straightened up, attempting to smooth his perpetually rumpled lab coat. "We were just, the ambassador and I." Lyra stepped in smoothly. "Dr. Chen and I were reviewing some promising results from our joint research, General. Is there something we can assist you with?" General Okafor's eyes swept over the holographic displays, a hint of pride in her gaze. "I'm glad to see your collaboration is bearing fruit. However, I'm here on a different matter. The UN Security Council has called for a progress report on the Earth-Zarkai exchange program. They're particularly interested in any tangible benefits. The implied pressure in the general's words was clear. While many on Earth were excited about the prospect of interstellar cooperation, there were others who viewed the program with skepticism, even fear. They demanded concrete results to justify the resources being poured into the initiative. Alex and Lyra exchanged a glance. Their research, while promising, was still in its early stages. Lyra spoke first, her diplomatic training coming to the fore. "General, while we have made significant progress, it would be premature to present our findings to such a high-level audience. Perhaps a more general overview of our cultural and scientific exchange would be more appropriate." Alex nodded eagerly. "Yes, and we could highlight some of the other collaborative projects. Dr. Patel's team is doing amazing work with Zarkai agricultural techniques, and I heard the linguistics department has made a breakthrough in understanding the nuances of the Zarkai language." General Okafor considered their words, then shook her head. "I appreciate your caution, but the Council is looking for something more impactful. They need to see that this program has real-world applications, potential benefits for humanity." The pressure in the room was palpable. Lyra could sense Alex's growing anxiety, his earlier excitement replaced by worry. She realized that more than just their research was at stake here. The entire future of Earth-Zarkai relations could hinge on this moment. Taking a deep breath, Lyra made a decision. "General Okafor, with your permission, I would like to present our preliminary findings to the Security Council myself." Both Alex and the general looked at her in surprise. "Ambassador," General Okafor began, "while I appreciate your offer, are you sure that's wise? The Council can be challenging, especially to outsiders." Lyra's scales rippled with determination. "I understand the risks, General. But I also believe that the best way to foster understanding between our peoples is through direct interaction. Let them see a Zarkai presenting human Zarkai collaborative research. Let them ask their questions and voice their concerns directly to me." Alex stepped forward, his earlier nervousness replaced by resolve. "If Lyra's going, then I'm going too. This is our project. We should present it together." General Okafor looked between the two of them, a mix of admiration and concern on her face. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. The Council meets in 3 days. I hope you know what you're getting yourselves into." As the general left, Alex turned to Lyra, his expression a mix of excitement and terror. "Are we really doing this? Presenting unfinished research to the UN Security Council?" Lyra placed one of her hands on Alex's shoulder, a human gesture of comfort she had learned. "Indeed we are, Dr. Chen. But remember, it's not just about the research. It's about showing them what we can achieve together." Alex nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're right. We're not just scientists here, are we? We're ambassadors in our own right." "Precisely," Lyra agreed. "Now, let us prepare. We have much work to do and little time to do it." As they turned back to their research with renewed vigor, Lyra felt a surge of something she hadn't expected to find on this strange blue planet. Hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she didn't face them alone. In Alex, in their work together, she had found an unexpected ally, a bridge between their two worlds. The next 3 days would be crucial, not just for their research, but for the future of human-Zarkai relations. But as Lyra looked at the determination on Alex's face, she knew that together, they were ready to face whatever the Security Council might throw at them. Crisis on the horizon. The Grand Chamber of the United Nations Security Council buzzed with tension. Delegates from around the world murmured amongst themselves, their voices a low hum of anticipation and skepticism. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Lyra and Dr. Alex Chen, an unlikely pair about to face the scrutiny of Earth's most powerful political body. As General Okafor introduced them, Lyra felt a flutter of nervousness in her secondary heart, a uniquely Zarkai physiological response to stress. She glanced at Alex, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward. Honored members of the Security Council, she began, her translator converting her complex tonal language into crisp English. I stand before you not just as an ambassador of Zarkaya, but as a partner in human-Zarkai scientific collaboration. For the next hour, Lyra and Alex presented their research, explaining the potential applications of their radiation shielding technology. They fielded questions, some curious, others borderline hostile, with a united front of scientific expertise and diplomatic tact. As they concluded, a tense silence fell over the chamber. The council president, a stern-faced woman from Nigeria, leaned forward. Ambassador, Dr. Chen, your work is intriguing. However, I must ask, in a world facing numerous earthbound crises, why should we continue to allocate resources to this interstellar partnership? Before either could respond, alarms blared throughout the building. Screens around the chamber flickered to life, displaying urgent news broadcasts. The headline made Lyra's blood run cold. Massive solar flare detected. Earth in danger. General Okafor rushed into the room, her face grim. Mr. President, honored delegates, we have a situation. Our solar observatories have detected a solar flare of unprecedented magnitude. Initial projections suggest it could overwhelm Earth's magnetosphere, potentially causing catastrophic damage to our power grids and communication systems. The chamber erupted into chaos. Amid the panic, Lyra's mind raced. She caught Alex's eye, seeing the same realization dawning on his face. Their research, it could be the key. General. Alex called out, his voice cutting through the noise. Our shielding technology, it might be able to help. All eyes turned to them. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The radiation shielding we've been developing, with modification, it could potentially be used to reinforce Earth's natural defenses against the solar flare. The council president's eyes narrowed. Is this possible? Can it be done in time? Lyra and Alex exchanged glances. It's theoretical, Alex admitted. We'd need to scale up dramatically, and fast. But it's our best shot. Do it, the president commanded. Whatever resources you need, you'll have them. What followed was a whirlwind of activity. The Interstellar Diplomacy Center was transformed into a command hub. Scientists from around the world were called in, working alongside the small contingent of Zarkai researchers who had accompanied Lyra to Earth. Days blurred together as they raced against time. Lyra and Alex worked tirelessly, their earlier camaraderie deepening into a profound mutual respect and trust. They pushed each other, challenged each other's assumptions, and in the process, made breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. As the deadline approached, they faced a critical decision. Their calculations showed that to generate a shield strong enough to protect Earth, they would need to divert power from major cities around the globe. It would leave millions in darkness, but it could save billions of lives. The weight of the decision fell heavy on world leaders. In a historic moment of unity, governments around the world agreed to the plan. As the flare approached, power grids worldwide went dark. Satellites were repositioned, and Earth held its breath. In the control room, Lyra and Alex stood side by side, watching as their creation was put to the ultimate test. The flare hit with devastating force, lighting up monitors and sensors. For agonizing minutes they waited, unsure if their shield would hold. Then, slowly, the readings began to stabilize. The shield was working. Earth's infrastructure, while strained, remained largely intact. As realization dawned, cheers erupted around them. Alex turned to Lyra, his eyes shining with relief and pride. "We did it," he breathed. Lyra allowed herself a moment of joy, her scales shimmering with emotion. But as the initial elation faded, a new worry gnawed at her. She turned to General Okafor, who was coordinating with world leaders. "General," Lyra said, her voice urgent, "the flare, its trajectory, it's not just Earth that's in danger. Zarkaya lies directly in its path. The room fell silent. The implications were clear. Zarkaya, with its less advanced technology, would be defenseless against the flare's fury. Everything they had just saved Earth from would befall Lyra's homeworld. Alex stepped forward, determination etched on his face. We have to help them. After everything Lyra and her people have done for us, we can't just stand by. General Okafor nodded gravely. Agreed. But how? We barely had time to protect Earth. Zarkaya is light years away. Lyra's mind raced, considering and discarding ideas. Then a spark of inspiration hit her. The wormhole network, she said, her voice growing excited. The one we use for communication and small-scale transport between our worlds. If we could stabilize it, expand it, we could extend the shield to Zarkaya. Alex finished, catching on to her train of thought. It's never been done before, not on this scale, but theoretically. General Okafor looked between them, hope warring with skepticism on her face. Can it be done? Lyra and Alex shared a look, years of scientific passion and newfound friendship conveyed in a single glance. We can try, they said in unison. As alarms blared anew and the control room burst into frantic activity, Lyra felt a profound sense of unity. In this moment of crisis, the boundaries between human and Zarkay seemed to fade away. They were simply beings united in the face of cosmic peril, racing against time to save not one world, but two. The true test of their alliance lay ahead, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. But as Lyra looked at the determination on the faces around her, human and Zarkay alike, she knew that together they stood a chance. The crisis that threatened to tear them apart might just be the force that truly united them. Race against time. The Interstellar Diplomacy Center had transformed into a hive of frenetic activity. Scientists, engineers, and diplomats from both Earth and Zarkaya worked side by side, their differences set aside in the face of impending catastrophe. At the heart of this controlled chaos stood Lyra and Alex, their earlier triumph in saving Earth, now overshadowed by the monumental task of extending their shield to Zarkaya. The wormhole network was never designed for this, muttered Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading expert on wormhole physics. Her holographic image flickered as she gesticulated wildly, pointing at complex equations floating in the air. We're talking about expanding its capacity by orders of magnitude. It's like trying to send a tsunami through a garden hose. Across the room, Zixel, a Zarkay quantum engineer, chimed in. Dr. Tanaka is correct. Our most advanced models suggest a 99.98% chance of catastrophic network collapse if we attempt this. The room fell silent, the weight of impossibility settling heavily on everyone's shoulders. Lyra felt a familiar flutter in her secondary heart, but pushed the feeling aside. She looked at Alex, seeing the same determination in his eyes that she felt. Alex stepped forward, his voice cutting through the gloom. Then we make new models. We rewrite the laws of physics if we have to. We've already done the impossible once. We'll do it again. His words sparked a renewed sense of purpose in the room. Teams reformed. Ideas were tossed back and forth. And slowly, a plan began to take shape. The solution, when it came, was as elegant as it was audacious. It was Lyra who first proposed it, building on a stray comment from one of the human interns. What if, she said, her scales shimmering with excitement, instead of trying to force the shield through the existing network, we used the shield itself to stabilize an expanded wormhole. The room erupted into a flurry of calculations and simulations. Hours passed in a blur of coffee, for the humans, and nutrient mists, for the Zarkay. Finally, Dr. Tanaka looked up from her equations, a mix of awe and trepidation on her face. It could work, she said quietly. But the power requirements, we'd need to harness the energy of a small star. Alex's eyes lit up. Or a large solar flare, he said, a grin spreading across his face. The plan that emerged was as brilliant as it was dangerous. They would use the very force threatening to destroy them as the power source for their salvation. By carefully positioning a network of satellites and space stations, they could channel the energy of the solar flare, using it to power the expanded wormhole and extend the shield to Zarkaya. But there was a catch. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and they wouldn't have enough power. Too late, and both worlds would be defenseless. "We'll need to coordinate with teams on Zarkaya," Lyra said. "The shield generators on both planets will need to be in perfect sync." General Okafor, who had been silently observing until now, stepped forward. "I'll speak with the World Council. We'll need every nation on board for this to work." As the general left to make her case to Earth's leaders, Lyra felt a touch on her arm. It was Alex, his face etched with concern. "Lyra," he said softly, "this plan, if it works, it's going to change everything. The kind of power we're talking about, the ability to manipulate wormholes on this scale, it could be used for more than just defense." Lyra understood his unspoken worry. Such technology, in the wrong hands, could be devastating. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she said. "For now, let's focus on saving our worlds." The next few days were a blur of activity. As word spread of the plan, volunteers poured in from around the globe. Engineers worked tirelessly to modify satellites and space stations. Physicists fine-tuned their calculations. And through it all, Lyra and Alex stood at the center, coordinating efforts between Earth and Zarkaya. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The expanded network of satellites was in place. Shield generators on both planets hummed with barely contained power. In control rooms on Earth and Zarkaya, tense operators watched their screens, waiting for the solar flare to reach its peak. Lyra stood beside Alex, both of them staring at the main view screen. The flare was visible now, a writhing mass of plasma hurtling towards them at unimaginable speed. 10 seconds to optimal power threshold, called out one of the technicians. Lyra felt Alex's hand slip into hers. She squeezed it, drawing comfort from his presence. 5 seconds. Around the world, and across the gulf of space on Zarkaya, billions held their breath. 3, 2, 1. Now, Lyra and Alex shouted in unison. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a surge of power that made the very air crackle, the wormhole network flared to life. On the view screen, they watched as the shield, visible now as a shimmering curtain of energy, expanded impossibly, stretching across the void of space. Alarms blared as systems were pushed to their limits. Shield integrity at 60%, 50%, 40%. The numbers kept dropping, and Lyra felt her heart sink. It wasn't going to be enough. But then, just as hope began to fade, a new voice cut through the chaos. Zarkaya shield generators online. Synchronizing now. The effect was immediate. The shield stabilized, its glow intensifying, as it drew power from both worlds. As the solar flare struck, the shield bent but did not break, channeling the destructive energy into the very wormhole network that was its backbone. For long minutes, no one dared to breathe. Then, slowly, the flare began to dissipate. As the last of its energy was absorbed by the shield, cheers erupted in control rooms on both planets. Lyra turned to Alex, her eyes shining with emotion. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Alex pulled her into a hug, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "No," he said, his voice thick with exhaustion and joy. "We did it. All of us together." As the celebration raged around them, Lyra looked out at the faces in the room. Human and Zarkai, no longer separated by species but united in triumph. In that moment, she knew that everything had changed. The crisis that had threatened to destroy them had instead forged a bond stronger than any treaty or alliance. But as the initial euphoria began to fade, Lyra caught Alex's eye. They both knew that their work was far from over. The power they had unleashed, the technology they had created, It would reshape the relationship between their worlds in ways they could only begin to imagine. The crisis was over, but a new chapter in human-Zarkai relations was just beginning. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. A new understanding. The weeks following the solar flare crisis were a whirlwind of activity, celebration, and profound change. As the dust settled and the immediate danger passed, both Earth and Zarkaya found themselves grappling with the implications of their shared victory and the new technology that had made it possible. On a crisp autumn morning, Lyra stood at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, her iridescent scales gleaming under the lights. Beside her stood Alex, a steady presence that had become as familiar to her as her own reflection. Before them, delegates from every nation on Earth sat in rapt attention, joined by holographic representations of Zarkai leaders. Distinguished delegates, honored guests. Lyra began, her translator conveying the gravity in her tone. We stand here today not just as representatives of our respective worlds, but as testament to what we can achieve when we work together. She paused, her multifaceted eyes scanning the room. The crisis we faced threatened to destroy us all. Instead, it has bound us together in ways we never imagined possible. The shield that now protects both our worlds is more than just a technological marvel. It is a symbol of our shared destiny. Alex stepped forward, picking up where Lyra left off. But with great power comes great responsibility, he said, his voice carrying the weight of their shared experiences. The wormhole network we've created, the energy we can now harness, these advancements have the potential to revolutionize both our societies. They also have the potential for misuse. A murmur ran through the assembly. Everyone present understood the implications. The technology that had saved them could also be weaponized, used to bridge vast distances instantly, or to channel unimaginable amounts of energy. That is why, Lyra continued, we propose the formation of a joint Earth-Zarkai committee. This body will oversee the development and application of our new shared technologies, ensuring they are used for the benefit of all. The proposal was met with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Over the next few hours, questions flew back and forth. How would decisions be made? Who would have access to the technology? What safeguards would be put in place? Through it all, Lyra and Alex stood united, fielding inquiries with a blend of scientific expertise and diplomatic finesse that had become their hallmark. As the session drew to a close, a sense of cautious optimism filled the chamber. It wouldn't be easy, but the path forward was clear. Later that evening, Lyra and Alex found themselves on the roof of the Interstellar Diplomacy Center, gazing up at the stars. The shield was invisible to the naked eye, but knowing it was there, spanning the vast distance between their worlds, filled them both with a sense of awe. It's strange, Alex said, breaking the comfortable silence. A few months ago, the idea of working alongside an alien seemed like something out of a science fiction story. Now, I can't imagine facing any of this without you. Lyra's scales shimmered with warmth. I feel the same, she admitted. When I first arrived on Earth, I was so focused on our differences. Now, I see how much we have in common. Our curiosity, our resilience, our capacity for growth and change. Alex nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. We've come so far, but we still have a long way to go. The technology we've created, it's going to change everything. Space travel, energy production, communication. We're standing on the brink of a new era, and we'll face it together, Lyra said firmly. There will be challenges, certainly. Those who fear change, those who might seek to use our discoveries for their own gain. But I believe that what we've built here, this partnership, this trust, is stronger than any obstacle we might face. As if to underscore her words, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Both of them watched its arc, momentarily lost in thought. You know, Alex said with a grin, on Earth, there's a tradition of making a wish when you see a shooting star. Lyra tilted her head, intrigued. And what would you wish for? Alex Chen. Alex's expression turned serious. A future where our peoples continue to work together, where we explore the stars not as separate species, but as united explorers, where the boundaries between us fade away and we discover just how far we can go together. Lyra felt a surge of emotion, her secondary heart beating a rapid tattoo. That, she said softly, is a wish I share. As they stood there, a human scientist and a Zarkai diplomat, gazing up at the vast expanse of space, both felt a profound sense of possibility. The crisis that had brought them together had been averted, but it had left in its wake something far more valuable, a partnership that transcended the boundaries of their species, a friendship that defied the odds, and a shared vision for the future. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be setbacks, disagreements, and new challenges to face. But as Lyra and Alex turned to head back inside, ready to continue their work, they did so with the knowledge that they were no longer alone. Whatever the universe might throw at them, they would face it together, two species united in their quest for knowledge, understanding, and a better future for all. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, Earth and Zarkaya were no longer distant, separate threads. They were now interwoven, their fates and futures bound together. And as the stars wheeled overhead, bearing silent witness to this new chapter in interstellar relations, the possibilities seemed as endless as space itself.